The following is a world-class Bullshitters exclusive.
In 1939, Batman first appeared in Detective Comics number 27. Created by Bill Finger and Bob Kane, Batman became DC's next big superhero after Superman. Initially, Batman looked much different. Collaborator Bill Finger recalled that Kane had an idea for a character called Batman, and he'd like me to see the drawings. I went over to Kane's and he had drawn a character who looked very much like Superman, kind of reddish tights, I believe, with boots, no gloves, no gauntlets, with a small domino mask swinging on a rope. He had two stiff wings that were sticking out that looked like bat wings, and under it a big sign, Batman. After some refinement, Batman would go on to be an instant hit. By 1943, Batman would have its first foray into live action with the Batman serial. Not this kind of serial, it would take another 45 years for that to happen. In 1966, Batman debuted on ABC. This Batman was campy and over the top. Partnered with Robin, the boy wonder, the dynamic duo would take on countless villains from the comic book. Played perfectly by Adam West, Batman would be an international hit, spawning a theatrical film and a slew of merchandise. For an entire generation, this was the perception of Batman. For 20 years, Batman was that type of comic character, but only to the masses. In print, there was a concerted effort to return Batman to his darker roots. The late 1960s saw new creatives pump new life into Batman. Neil Adams, Carmine Infantino, and Denny O'Neil helped redefine the modern Batman. The change was well received by readers, and Batman would continue to grow. The 1980s saw two of the most important Batman stories of all time, The Dark Knight Returns and Batman Year One, both written by Frank Miller and feature a dark, grittier take on Batman. These two Batman stories, along with The Killing Joke, would influence the film Batman. Batman '89 was a genre-defining game-changer which introduced the world to a darker Batman on film. The film was a massive success, bringing in over $400 million on a $48 million budget. In today's money, Batman '89 brought in $987 million, a big win for The Dark Knight. Of all the things spawned from the success of that film, one stands above the rest, including the film itself, Batman the Animated Series. Often regarded as one of the best cartoons of all time, Batman the Animated Series debuted in September of 1992. Over the course of 109 episodes, Batman the Animated Series redefined cartoons, comic book culture, and Batman himself. The creative team behind Batman the Animated Series is just as important as Batman, but one man is at the forefront of that, Bruce Timm. The DC animated universe is sometimes referred to as the Timmverse, but Batman the Animated Series was a co-creation of Bruce Timm, Eric Radomski, Alan Burnett, and Paul Dini. When Warner executives announced in 1990 that the studio was preparing a Batman animated series, Timm and Radomski jumped at the chance. The look of Batman the Animated Series differentiated it from other contemporary cartoons, a hodgepodge of old and new. Radomski has acknowledged a direct inspiration from Tim Burton's 1989 film. He's quoted as saying, "The opportunity to bring some influence into animation that could at least be in line with that Tim Burton movie was just unique," he said. And that's kind of why my direction came out the way it did in the very beginning. A major part of that direction was settling on the look of Gotham City. The Oscar award-winning Anton Furst design of Burton's film created a Gotham where the characters wore fashions of the 40s and drove cars of the 80s, in a city deliberately clashing in architectural styles. Radomski embraced the dark aspects of Burton's Gotham. His backgrounds were painted on black paper, but ultimately wanted his Gotham to be a little more stylish and a little classier. So he leaned into the 1940s time period with nearly every building in Gotham City being done in Art Deco. The goal of using this dark deco on Batman the Animated Series was to make the show look timeless, and given its continuing popularity and pop culture relevance 30 years later, it succeeded. Interestingly, Batman the Animated Series is only part of a movement spawned by Batman '89. The year after Burton's Batman, Warren Beatty accomplished something similar with Dick Tracy. Dick Tracy looked like the comic strip brought to life. It was lit and designed in strong, vibrant colors, with makeup transforming Hollywood icons into breathtaking caricatures. None of the movies that followed would go quite as far as Batman or Dick Tracy, but they codified a template for a wave of superhero and comic book adaptation. One can see the influence of Batman and Dick Tracy on projects like Joe Johnston's The Rocketeer, The Shadow, The Mask, and The Phantom. These films were linked by common traits. They all felt decidedly retro and old-fashioned. Dick Tracy, The Rocketeer, The Shadow, and The Phantom were all explicitly period pieces set in the 1930s and 1940s. There is enough shared DNA between these movies that they feel like a distinct subgenre unto themselves, one different from the modern wave of superhero movies. Obviously, these weren't the first superhero movies or even the first modern superhero movies, but they were the first to emerge after the end of the Christopher Reeve Superman franchise. Batman the Animated Series rises above all of these. Its application of the art style is in the show's DNA and can't be overlooked in terms of importance. It's also worth noting that this particular take on Gotham City introduces elements that are still used in comic books and films today. The world of Batman the Animated Series was thoroughly developed on every level. The design of the world is important, but so is the character design. Batman the Animated Series characters stood out from contemporary cartoons because the characters were stylized. Bruce Timm was inspired by Jack Kirby as well as the Fleischer Studio Superman cartoons. The shapes, the anatomy, and the movement all evoke classic animation. Simplicity is the key, but these designs, coupled with the iconic voice acting, would create definitive versions of characters that rose above the live-action counterpart. The action was fluid and beautiful. Compared to Marvel's X-Men cartoon, which debuted a few weeks after Batman, the animated series was a much cleaner production. Batman felt like art. Other shows felt like products. The presentation treated the series with a level of respect that no animated show in history had before. The creators knew they were making something special, and their effort is still felt 30 years later. The look of the show is only part of its iconic status. Another part of the series that left a lasting impact was the voice work. Casting directors were looking for the right voice for their Batman. Their search proved to be a difficult one. Hundreds auditioned for the role, but nobody felt right. Eventually, Kevin Conroy, a theater actor, was recommended to audition for the part. Conroy's Batman knowledge extended only to the original Adam West TV show, so upon learning this, the casting directors gave him a crash course on the character's tragic backstory and the darkness of various comic book storylines. What can be said about Kevin Conroy as Batman that hasn't been said before? He was Batman for an entire generation, and he was perfect. He brought a duality to the character that wasn't present before. Even in film, no one brought the gravitas that Conroy did. Kevin Conroy's Batman is still used as the measuring stick for all forms of Batman. Everyone is compared to Conroy. Christian Bale, Ben Affleck, Robert Pattinson, and the rest failed to reach the heights that Conroy did with his voice alone. Kevin Conroy will be missed in the role, and for all the goodwill he brought to the fans for the 30 years he voiced the character. Every hero needs a villain, and Batman the Animated Series has lots of them, but one stands out above the rest, the clown prince of crime, the Joker, voiced by Mark Hamill. Hamill's Joker was an early fan favorite. Though Batman and the Joker had the most memorable voices, the rest of the cast is excellent as well, with iconic actors voicing characters old and new. The most impactful new character was Harley Quinn, voiced by Arlene Sorkin. Harley Quinn began life as a sidekick to the Joker, who fell deeply in love with her chaotic captor. By 1994, she was the star of her own comic book, Mad Love. Years later, Harley Quinn remained a popular DC character who has been featured in film, print, and her own animated series. Her transition into live action was met with much excitement, but the end result left fans unsatisfied. Nevertheless, Harley Quinn was Batman the Animated Series' greatest new creation, and the impact she left on audiences was long-lasting. Batman's contemporaries never reached the same heights as the animated series. Shows like X-Men the Animated Series and Spider-Man, both iconic, received neither the acclaim nor had the freedom that Batman the Animated Series had. While all three were part of the Fox Kids lineup, only Batman was allowed to show realistic gun violence and closed-fist punches. Not only were Spider-Man and X-Men not allowed to show those, but shows couldn't even depict broken glass or landing too close to birds. That's part of what helped elevate Batman from a cartoon to an animated series. Because of the realistic elements, the show plays like an animated drama that appeals to all ages. The show features more serious emotional moments like Baby Doll. For years, the acclaim for this show would not lessen. Very few shows become the definitive version of a character in their world, but Batman the Animated Series is widely regarded as the best representation of Batman, period. More so than the Burton films or the award-winning Nolan films. Batman the Animated Series' popularity has never waned. It is the most beloved cartoon in history, and its influence can still be seen today. Both Mark Hamill and Kevin Conroy have voiced their iconic characters in other mediums, including video games, but the success of those games is in part due to the association with Batman the Animated Series. Most conversations around who is the best version of these characters always includes these two voice actors, when all other discussions only include live action. The rendition of Batman and the Joker in this series transcend any media. It makes the passing of Kevin Conroy that much sadder. His Batman felt forever. Conroy will be remembered as Batman, but millions also knew him as a kind person that appreciated the fans and celebrated the legacy of Batman. He will live on through the role in our memories. This year, the show celebrates its 30th anniversary. For both fans and creators, it's a show that stands the test of time because of the efforts and dedication put into the creation. It's the perfect blend of art, storytelling, and world building. Batman the Animated Series was ahead of its time and still is in many ways. It's a high watermark in entertainment. Nothing has passed it in its medium. The show would spawn many spin-offs, creating what fans would call the DC Animated Universe, including Superman, the animated series, Static Shock, Batman Beyond, Justice League Unlimited, and more. The animated series stands above all else and is still the best adaptation of Batman ever. And now it's time for 3 questions, folks. 1. What is your favorite episode of Batman the Animated Series? 2. Who's your favorite Batman? And 3. Where were you when you found out Kevin Conroy passed away? I was here at the WCBS headquarters working on a video, and I had to take a moment. Batman passed away. I felt the same sadness when Adam West passed away, as well as Roger Moore. These actors are people, they have their own lives, their own families, but for millions of people, they become the characters, and people like Adam West, Kevin Conroy, and Roger Moore, embodied the characters on film, on screen, and publicly with the fans, and brought a level of goodwill that is very rare to find between a fan and a celebrity interaction. So folks, I'm going to get out of here. I'm going to go watch more Batman the Animated Series. But folks, be on the lookout for more World Class Bullshitters content. And folks, thank you for watching. After today's video, if you feel so inclined, do us a favor, share the video. Sharing it all over social media just once helps. So if you wouldn't mind doing that, we'd really appreciate it. Now, if you're one of the cool kids and you really want to be part of the club, well, go over to shopwcbs.com, get yourself a shirt, a mug, a beer glass, a sweatshirt, because it's cold out, and join the club that way. And if you're a super duper fan, because super fan's already taken, make sure you go over to patreon.com/worldclassbs, get bonus content, be a part of the show, help support the show, and a whole lot more. But folks, no matter what you do, we appreciate you. So join us on Thursday nights for the podcast, Tuesday nights for the High Council, and every other day for content here on YouTube and other platforms. That's it. Thank you for watching. Be smart, be safe, be cool, but always be excellent to each other. Thanks for watching today's video. Yes, it's over, but don't cry because there's more, a lot more from World Class Bullshitters. And there's only one way to get it. Hit that subscribe button below. When you do that, you'll get notifications and updates from World Class Bullshitters every time we go live. Basically, you won't miss anything. And if there's one thing I hate, it's FOMO. But the thing most people hate more than FOMO is fear of missing out on World Class Bullshitters, because there's just some things you can't undo. So folks, do yourselves a favor and never miss anything from World Class Bullshitters. One last thing before you go, hit the thumbs up button. Not for our egos, no, they're big enough as this, but it does help us fight the algorithm here, and well, it's man versus machine, and that's the real fight. But if that's not your battle, that's okay. There's one last way you can help WCBS, and that's going over to shopwcbs.com, picking up a t-shirt, a beer glass, a sweatshirt, a poster, all sorts of ways to back WCBS. The difference between us and other YouTube channels is I'm the artist that makes all this stuff, so if you enjoy art beyond t-shirts, you can even read our comic books. We got it all. We're called the epitome of pop culture for a reason, and no, again, it's not for our egos. So folks, make sure you're involved with every aspect of World Class Bullshitters, not just for us, but do it for yourself. We're making the change in entertainment everybody out there wants to see. And a special thank you goes out to all of our wonderful patrons who make this content possible. Go to patreon.com/worldclassbs to get involved and help out the channel.